Alright folks, so I'm back out here working on a Cat 416C Backhoe made around year 95. Of course these are serial number specific, not necessarily year specific. Anyways, last year I was working on the tractor and the loader stopped lifting. It was very weak, and I replaced some of the seals in one of the check valves for the resolver circuit. There's a primary and a secondary resolver check valves. I forget which is which. This is one and this is the other. And last year some of the seals blew on this check valve, and I replaced the seals, and she started working for me. And now this year one of these seals blew. Exact same symptoms. So the loader doesn't lift very well at all. Very slow, very weak. And if you use any other hydraulic circuit, tilt the loader bucket, move the boom in the back, the stick, put your feet up and down, any of those other circuits make the loader lift more powerfully and fast as it should. So those are the symptoms. The loader's weak, doesn't want to lift. You activate another control circuit, the loader starts lifting. You stop activating another control circuit, the loader goes back to weak lifting performance. So if I was having these symptoms, I would just replace all these seals, especially if your tractor's older. If your tractor's older, they're probably going to go. All the ones I replaced that were working and not blown, you could tell that they were on their way out. Here I've got the rear tire of the tractor off. This is the right side of the tractor. Cat was nice enough to have these access holes in the frame. If you can see in there, there's this check valve assembly right here that pulls out. And then up on the bottom, I'm going to show you another clip of replacing these ones. Just a quick note, this tractor has the forward group of 3 for the 3 controls for the loader, and the quick release are these 3 right here. And then there's an additional one right here that's either at the front of the circuit or the rear circuit. It might be for the power steering, I'm not quite sure. I'll go ahead and replace that one too. This was the one that was blown for me, but the way I understand it is it's not necessarily the one broken that would cause issues on that circuit. So it's from some reading I did, my best understanding is, and I could be wrong on this, is that it could also be in an adjacent one. So this is the loader lift, and this is either the tilt or the quick release. And this one being blown could cause symptoms on this circuit. So just a note on that. I'm going to show you some clips on replacing these. I'm all done now, but I'm going to show you some clips. Let me just kind of summarize what you'll need. You'll want to take the right rear tire off so you have access to this right here. I would recommend getting a tarp or something to put down, so when you lose stuff, hopefully you can find it. This assembly right here doesn't have any loose parts, but when you take this cover off to get to this assembly, there's some small parts that you could lose, and some ball bearings. I'll show you in detail when I take that off. And this check valve right here, this check valve ball may or may not come out, and so I would recommend having a magnetic wand. May be helpful for taking it in or out if you need to, and a good area to catch things. And I'll also recommend buying a few extra of these ball bearing check valves in case you drop one, because they're a little bit tricky. And if you lose one in the dirt, then you got to go all the way back in the dealership and get one. So I'd go ahead and buy, if it were me, I would buy all your seals for this check valve and this check valve for all of your valve groups, and replace them all at once. They're going to go, it's about 50 bucks worth of O-rings. But I think that's money well spent rather than having to work on it twice. So here's the valve control group for the bucket. If you take, these are the 3 valves, if you undo these 7/16 bolts, these assemblies come off, and then right here there's an Allen key for each valve. You take that out and it's a check valve assembly that falls out. And so that was what my last video, and these are actually still good. I checked them out and checked the seals, and but I'm still getting the same symptoms. And so it's the ones in the back that need to be replaced now. And just a reminder, this is the rearward facing valve. When you take this one out, there's 6 small ball bearings and 1 large small bearings and a spring, and you're going to want to be real careful taking this apart, or you're going to lose some ball bearings and have to buy some new ones like I did. So a fair warning on that. And the other thing is, I'll tell you while I crawl to the rear of the tractor, working on any of this hydraulic stuff, have all your hydraulics in a down position and relieve any pressure in any lines, and act as if anything hydraulic is going to fall, because it will if you crack a line or a seal breaks. And also, on what I'm going to show you here, you'll end up activating your hydraulics when you do this procedure. So plan ahead, or somebody's going to get really hurt. All right, so this is the valve control group at the rear of the tractor, looking kind of up and towards the rear. This one here I know is for the Extendaho. I'm not sure off the top of my head what the other ones are. So I pulled this one, and here's what they look like. You saw them in my last video. This is the an old check valve, and there's a seal here and a seal here, and these seals like to go when they're older. There's a little ball bearing in there for a check valve. So I pulled this one and it's good, and I pulled this one and the seal was blown out. And all the same symptoms as last time. All the other hydraulic functions work. The bucket is very weak and won't lift all the way, and I went through and activated every single other hydraulic circuit, both up and down, and any one of them operating with the bucket would cause the bucket to lift better. So those are the symptoms. I think this is a fairly common thing. What you'll need for this is a 7/16 wrench, something to catch oil, a Allen key. I'm not sure what Allen key size this is. And so what's going to happen when I take off this cap, the 7/16 bolt, is you shouldn't lose any oil. You might lose a little bit of oil if the seals are leaking in the valve unit. But when you undo this cap, there's spring pressure. You'll see when I take it off. When you undo this cap, the valve control handle could fall, and that's going to could possibly lower whatever that valve is controlling. So if it's your bucket and there's somebody under your bucket, that bucket's gonna fall on somebody or something and hurt it, because this spring right here is pushing down on the cap, and so now that lever is free to move and fall, and so I don't want you to hurt yourself. So you take your I took this one out before, so it's loose, but if you take a hammer and give this a couple taps, if you had a straight one it'd be better, that'll kind of help loosen it, because they will get kind of stuck after years, and that'll kind of help loosen it, so I've read. And when you take this out, you're going to have not a lot, but it's going to kind of drip oil consistently, fluid rather. And so you're going to take this out, and once the threads are undone, the O-rings can still kind of stick, so you may need to kind of get in there and pull it with a pair of needle nose pliers or something. But this one's been out. I had this one out before. Let's look at it over here. So here's the check valve assembly. I think I've also seen them called resolvers. This bottom O-ring, I'm guessing it's just kind of holding fluid and not a lot of pressure, but I'm not sure. And this O-ring is missing. When I pulled it out the last time, it had failed and I got the chunks out of there. I don't know. On these systems, what gets filtered is the hydraulic fluid returning to the reservoir, not the hydraulic fluid right before it goes to the pump. So if you get any trash in the system, and if it doesn't get filtered before it goes to the pump, you're looking at a big expensive repair bill. I don't know if this in this oil circuit or fluid circuit, if it goes straight to the tank or if it gets filtered or how that works. So if you get any trash in your system and it goes to your pump, you could really be causing some big problems in the future. So you'll want to go to every effort to make sure you're not letting any trash get in the system. So let me see if I can put the camera somehow here. All right, that'll kind of work. So here's my valve, or excuse me, my check valve. I'm going to take the old O-rings off. And they're two different sizes for these ones on the end, one here and one here, and then there's this one here at the bottom. A note on for this particular model, I'm not sure what the answer is, but be aware, if you go to the dealership and they look up the part number, it'll show this in a diagram for this part. And there's an O-ring here, and on the one that they'll show you at the dealership, there is an O-ring and then a backer ring, and it's basically a white O-ring and it's split and it's put on one side of the O-ring, and that's for this O-ring and this O-ring. And the check valve assembly is actually, it's wider there, so it has enough space for the O-ring. When I replaced the three before last year, I wasn't sure if it was a part number revision, if it was a different one, if it would work. So I went ahead and replaced the whole check valve. Everything worked great. And then I pulled these two so far, and they don't have the backer rings like the last ones I pulled. And there's 7 of them, and I'm going to go ahead and replace all of them, even if only one is bad, because the others are likely to go too. It's an old tractor. And so we use the part number for the O-rings for the design that has a backer ring, and they appear to be the same, but I don't know for sure if it's going to work, so we'll find out here soon. So watch the video till the end, and I'll tell you, whether that was a good idea or a bad idea, or if I should have bought a whole new check valve assembly. I'll just rather not spend the money on something that isn't required. It'd be a few $100 versus $20 worth of O-rings. So I'm gonna get O-ring here. This one is the large one. It'll go on first. I like to take a object like this and roll it a few times and give the O-ring a chance to go to its natural position, because sometimes when you pry them on, it might be twisted, and it's probably best to have the O-ring in its natural position and not twisted. Sometimes they're kind of tight on there and they won't go. Sometimes they will. So there's that one. the next one, it's probably a good idea to put them on in order so that you're not stretching an O-ring over an O-ring. So this is the larger one, I believe. Yep, it is. Kind of work over one groove at a time. There we go, and then I'll run it a few times just to make sure that it's let it go to its natural position so it's not twisted. And then I'll gently pull out of there without tearing it. And the smallest one last. If you do have the design that has the backer ring, make sure that that backer ring is on the correct side of the O-ring. If you look at the parts diagram, it'll show you which side of the O-ring the backer ring goes on. If you mess that up, it's you're probably gonna have some bad problems. I'm guessing. It might work, but better do it right. All right, I'll roll that a few times. Okay. So this is kind of like surgery. It's hard out here in the dirt. There's pretty much a zero tolerance for dirt and debris in hydraulic systems. So you want to be absolutely as clean as humanly possible with dirt and debris. It's very difficult out here. All right, so let's put this guy back. You can see it's still dripping fluid. It's not like a lot or anything, but it'll just continue to just kind of drip out of there. And get my Allen wrench. These new O-rings are going to be a little tighter because they're not all flattened out from time, and they're elastic. You may need to kind of just push it in a little, add just a little bit of pressure as you're threading it in. Obviously, if you're using excessive force, something's probably wrong, and you don't want to cross-thread it or anything, but it will take a little pressure just to get those O-rings seated in their grooves. All right. So that's that. The next is you just put that cap back on and tighten up those 7/16 bolts. I did it for the first one here. We just did the second one. I'm going to go ahead and do all 7 of them. I don't like working on things several times, and it was a pretty cheap fix. Alright folks, so I replaced all those O-ring seals, and I still have the same symptoms. The boom on the back does seem more responsive, a little bit faster and a little bit more powerful, but the loader lift is still unchanged. Only one of the seals was blown in that group of 7 controls in the back, but I went ahead and replaced all the seals. If one went, the others are probably not far behind. So I did some more reading on the how the system works, and apparently there's 2 what people are calling resolvers. In the CAT's parts diagrams, they're just called check valves. So there's a primary and a secondary. This is the one that I replaced all the O-ring seals on for all, 10 valve groups on the tractor. And these I haven't touched. And so apparently from what I was reading, you get the same symptoms. You can get the same symptoms if one of these seals blows as well. And those symptoms is one of the hydraulic functions don't work unless you activate another one. And so I went ahead and I took the right rear tire off the tractor. Caterpillar was nice enough to design it with these holes for access. So these holes provide you access to take off this resolver or check valve right here. What you'll need to do this is you'll need to take off the right rear tire, and you'll have access to these holes. You want to clean that up a little bit so you don't get any debris in the system. And you'll need a 5/32 wrench. And if you look in there, that one, you can see right there, that's what needs to come out. I've taken that one out right there. Give it a little tap, a couple taps to loosen it up, break it free, and then unscrew it. And you can see right here the O-rings failed. So I'm going to go ahead and replace this one. I'm going to go ahead and replace all of them. It looks like there's 3 up here for the bucket controls, and I believe this other one has something to do with the power steering. I'm not too sure, I haven't got into it yet. But I've got parts for everything. I'm going to go ahead and replace it, and we'll see how it works. I'm going to replace this one real quick and see if the system functions. And either way, I'm going to replace everything. So it would be my advice, it's 20 bucks worth of O-ring seals to replace all the O-rings for this resolver, and another 20 bucks for something bucks for this. So, you know, 50 bucks or so, and you can replace all these O-rings. So if you have a failure in any of them, and your tractor's you know, got some age on it, it would be my recommendation to replace all of them for both resolvers on every unit. It's not that hard to do, and you know, it's probably going to save you trouble down the road. So with that said, I'm going to put this back together and we'll see if she works.